How does the man perform?
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey! It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Everybody, it's Monday. It's June. Could you believe this? It's freaking June. It's the beginning of June, which means support the show, everybody. First of the month, support the show. Thank you very much. So that was how Sky News was celebrating the arrival of the orange baby by showing a giant blimp darkening the doors of everybody in the UK. Isn't that something? Yes, Trump is in Britain. They just finished a state dinner with the Queen. The president stuck to prepared remarks, so he didn't embarrass us that much. But, look, the only thing I'm interested in about Britain is Elton John. Actually, did you see the movie? Have you seen Rocket Man? Oh, my God. I saw that over the weekend. I saw two really good movies. I saw On the Basis of Sex, the life story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That was amazing. And then I saw Rocket Man, and I got myself a very large popcorn with the golden topping. So you just might hear my belly. You just might hear some eruption. But it's the only thing I care about, that's British today is Elton John and that movie Rocket Man, which was just really, really good. Because the president, I don't know, when he goes out in the world, it's bad enough dealing with him when he's home. But to send him out into the rest of the world that, doesn't really suspect that he's, as crazy as we know, it's just, but he gave him a heads up before he even went. He started talking about guns. He started talking about Meghan Markle. He started talking about how she's nasty. He trashed the mayor of London before he even, set foot. This is like when you take your elderly aunt who's married to your crazy uncle who sits there and watches Fox News all day to the nail salon, right? And you just pray to God you could get through the manicure without her saying something really disgusting and untoward in front of the girls at the salon. And then she always does. So you have to leave like a freaking giant tip, So that's what we should do for Great Britain after the Trump visit. We should, leave $500 million in an envelope with a note saying, "We're so sorry. We're so freaking sorry." Sorry seems to be the hardest word. That's what we should be doing. Jared and Ivanka are the president's entourage. It's like we're telling the Brits, look, we got nepotism down. We could do it better than you, a hereditary monarchy. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we got this. It's so insulting. And Britain is in the middle of Brexit, which is the stupidest thing they've done since they decided that, red was a great color for, uniforms. Red coats are coming, red coats, just a flashback. Well, at least we're not the only idiots. If Brexit was a person, it would be Trump. And, this would just be easier if we could just play it off as a big giant joke, which is what Sky News chose to do. We should I like the baby blimp. I think it's hysterical, but they really should have some sort of a small little clip video of Trump riding around on a tricycle set to Benny Hill. Do you know what I mean? Or to Monty Python's Flying Circus. Oh, and speaking of jokes, do you know who the ambassador to Britain is? Who's sitting next to Camilla? Camilla had the tiara of the day, I have to say. I'm partial to the clear tiara. The Queen wore a ruby encrusted, and then sapphire, like earrings and necklace encrusted, diamond. But Camilla, she wore this massive freaking tiara, just all clear. I like that. But they sat her next to our ambassador to Britain, whose name is Woody Johnson, which is probably the worst name to Google since Santorum. Don't Google that. And they call, Meghan Markle nasty. And, of course, the president was tweeting all weekend that, before his plane even took off, he called Meghan Markle nasty. And of course, as soon as it hit the Twitter sphere and the news, he immediately apologized by saying it never happened, right? This is his version of sorry, seems to be the hardest word. He said, I never called Meghan Markle nasty. It was made up by fake news media, and they got caught cold. It's on tape.
Meghan, who's now the Duchess of Sussex,
right.
We've given her a different name. She can't make it because she's got maternity leave. Are you sorry not to see her because she wasn't so nice about you during the campaign? I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. No, I hope she's okay. I did not know that, no.
She said she'd move to Canada if you got elected. Turned out she moved to Britain.
Well, that would be good. There are a lot of people moving here. So, what can I say? No, I didn't know that she was nasty.
Hello? Tape? It's on tape. I can grab women by the P word. I didn't know she was nasty. The Trump War Room tweeted, fake news CNN is at it again, falsely claiming President Trump called Meghan Markle nasty. That is exactly what he said. You just heard it for yourself. And then he called her nasty on the tape that he posted, which is where we got it. He posted that. It's like he's trolling his own followers. I don't even understand. But thank God, just to wrap up the British part, like I said, the only thing I care about coming from Britain right now is Elton John. That movie, I didn't know it was a musical. I should give you a heads up. I did not know. I went there blind. I didn't read anything. I didn't do a spoiler. I didn't look for reviews. I love Elton John music, and I just thought, I want to see it. So we went to the movies, Karen, Steve, me, and Howard, and, like in the first scene, all of a sudden, when they break into song as, like a family, young children, like, Reg Dwight as a child, breaks into song, and the family breaks into, I said, Oh, I did not know. I wasn't in the mood for, it was fabulous. I have to say, it was just amazing. It was just really good. And then you wake up this morning and you find out that the president is about to go over there and embarrass the crap out of us. But I just so you know, the state dinner is over. Okay, it started at 20 minutes ago, and now it's over. All they did was the Queen welcomed him. She played the national anthem of the United States. Donald Trump read, thank God, from prepared remarks, said all the right things about what an awesome woman she is, whatever, and talked about World War II and this special relationship, and then sat down, they did a toast, and everybody left. It's over, it's done. Yay! So nothing to worry about there, except that, listen, let's not pretend that the whole world doesn't know that, that baby Trump is, is a problem. But let's cap off this segment of who gets what from whom with President Obama attending, I think it was Game 2 of the NBA playoffs? Is that what that was in Canada? Mm-hmm. Here's the reception that Barack Obama got in Canada. Compare it to what Trump got in Britain. All right. Oh, snap. Barack Obama! Woo!
So in love with you.
There are no words. Unbelievable. He got a standing ovation. It went on and on and on and on and on.
And then Toronto got beat.
Yeah, well. Do you really think he was there rooting for Toronto? Because I don't.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
No. He just, went where the playoffs were. But, and Canada must have known this. They must have known that he was not rooting for their team. And it did not matter. Did not matter. I miss him. I really, really miss him. Honest to God. But, all right. So, there is breaking news. It just came across the transom, just came across the wires. It was broken by Bloomberg. I think you will like it. California had its convention, early convention, all good stuff.
A all things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
With the power of the gavel, we will continue to legislate to make progress for the American people. But we will also investigate to defend our democracy and to hold this president and his administration accountable. We will go where the facts lead us. We will insist on the truth. We will build on an ironclad case to act. Because in the United States of America, no one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. And President Trump will be held accountable for his actions. In the Congress, in the courts, and in the court of public opinion, we will defend our democracy.
All right, so California, you had your state convention, and it was way earlier than usual. That's because you are now an early voting state, which is a great thing, because California actually has 500 delegates. 500. And typically, the delegates in California would cast their votes. People would go and vote in the primary so late that it almost didn't even matter. So California has changed their primary, and now the voting begins in California February 3rd, and it goes for a month. And it's over on March 3rd, but people will have voted on February 3rd all through the month of February, so it'll be nice and early. So now you join Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina as early voting states, which means that candidates now have to show up in California, and they have to face the largest state in the union, the most progressive state in the union, and they have to please California voters with their ideas and policy prescriptions and all those things. And that is really a good thing for America. I'm really happy to see it. So you had in Oakland, California, Elizabeth Warren was out there. She had 6,000 people attend her particular, I don't know what you would call it. It's not her convention. It's just her speech, right? So she was there, as she had 6,000. That was the biggest one so far in San Francisco on Friday night. Beto O'Rourke was out there. Senator Amy Klobuchar. They were pressing their cases. They were addressing the Latino caucus of the California Democratic Party. Jane Sanders, Bernie Sanders' wife, she made a surprise stop at a Chinese food restaurant and addressed what she dubbed Bernie-crats. There was a labor breakfast. Yeah, like the Republicans would ever have a labor breakfast. There was a labor breakfast in San Francisco, and Kamala Harris, was there, and she bumped into Bernie Sanders, who was also there at the labor breakfast. And it was really an interesting thing to watch. So California will start voting. You can cast your ballots by mail beginning on February 3rd. You get a month to vote, which is great. And let's hope that, some runaway nominee, emerges from California, New Hampshire. You got Nevada, Iowa, of course, and South Carolina, are all early primary states. So we're looking to see who's going to, rise to the top. I would say it doesn't look very good for John Hickenlooper. Oh, no, he went to California with his extreme moderateness. How could you be extremely in the middle of the road? So, if you're going to be in the middle and you veer off ever so slightly to the right, but you're going to stay in the middle, then it's not exactly an extreme. If you are going to stay in the middle and you veer a little bit to the left, it's not exactly extreme because you're going to stay in the... I'm not sure. I'm not clear. But you know what? John Hickenlooper did not do well. And, I have to say, you have to give him a little teeny tiny bit of credit. Not a whole lot, and I'll explain. But his speech was about health care, and he decided that he would approach his moment in the sun in the California State Democratic Convention by trashing Medicare for All. Did not go over well. I will show you what happened. But I will say that he has almost universal health care coverage in Colorado. Now, how do those two things live together in my head? Well, it's very simple. What Hickenlooper did as governor of Colorado was he expanded Medicaid. And so Medicaid, which is not the greatest insurance, a lot of doctors don't take it because the reimbursement fees are very low. And he's claiming 95% of Coloradans are currently covered with some health care coverage. That would be true. But he's only one of 37 states that expanded Medicaid coverage. And there are still 350,000 Coloradans without health care, which would not be the... And you know, most of them... Well, I won't say most of them, but a quarter of them are people who are ineligible for public insurance. They are undocumented. So you still have 350,000 Coloradans with no health insurance. You have 90,000 of them being ineligible for health insurance because they're undocumented. That said, he's got about 6.5% of Colorado uninsured. And if we had Medicare for all, or at least a public option, which he is against, even the option he's against. And I guess people know that. He might have universal health care coverage in his state. So he got booed.
If we want to beat Donald Trump and achieve big progressive goals, socialism is not the answer.
Uh-oh.
I was reelected in a purple state in 2014, one of the worst years for Democrats in a quarter century. If we're not careful, we're going to end up helping to re-elect the worst president in American history. We shouldn't try to achieve universal coverage by removing private insurance from over 150 million Americans. We should not try to tackle climate change by guaranteeing every American a government job. Hold on. As the Democratic Party, we have to create a vision for this country. I want to give Americans a reason to look forward to tomorrow. As president, I will make health care a right, not a privilege, with a real public option.
Oh, please.
I will tackle climate change with a laser focus. I will once and for all take on the NRA and have universal background checks on all gun sales.
It's just didn't go. Did not play well in... California. And that's because I think Californians are very educated voters, which is why they have the 5th largest economy in the world. Okay. 500 delegates on the line. Hickenlooper really blew it. I just don't think he's going to emerge as our guy, as our nominee. I just don't think that's going to happen. However, I just want you to know, he actually backed Trump's work requirement. A work requirement for Medicaid recipients. He's down with that. And also, I don't know how he got to stand there and say he's for a public option. He's not for a public option. He has made it clear that he's not for a public option. There was a ballot measure in Colorado that would have created a single-payer option. It was called Colorado Care, and he was against it. That was in 2016. So I'm not sure Hickenlooper, although I will say not as bad as, any Republican.
What Nancy Pelosi is trying to do, and the rest of us in the House of Representatives, is to develop a process by which we can efficiently move on this issue so that when we get to a vote, it would be something that she calls ironclad, I call effective. And that is why we're trying to take our times and do this right. So I don't see this as being out of whack with what people's aspirations are.
I'm trying to figure out the gauge for your timing. Are you waiting for the public to support impeachment in majority numbers?
No.
Are you waiting for Republicans in the Senate to come on board so that he gets convicted as well? What exactly is your gauge here if you support if you think that he broke the law and would have been indicted if he weren't president?
We think that we have to bring the public along. We aren't particularly interested in the Senate. We do believe that if we sufficiently, effectively educate the public, then we will have done our jobs and we can move on an impeachment vote and it will stand. And maybe it will be what needs to be done to incent the Senate to act.
Yeah.
So we are waiting on the Senate. We're trying to make sure that we do what is necessary to educate the public, make sure that the public understand exactly what we're doing, why we are doing it, so that people won't misinterpret this as being a political move on our part.
All right, so that's James Clyburn from South Carolina. He's a wonderful legislator. He's a really good guy. I actually know him. He is trying to explain that Nancy Pelosi is trying to come up with a process, right? So my explanation to you was something along the lines of, it's not waiting for the public opinion to rise to the occasion. It's the exact opposite. We are the problem. There's no question. The American public did not read this Mueller report. Oh, and on that note, I have to say, go to my Twitter feed at Randi Rhodes. The very last tweet I tweeted is a link to a free audiobook where beautiful voices, I mean, really good actors, actresses, are reading the Mueller report to you. If you like, it's on Audible and it's free, right? So if you have the Audible app, you can do it. But it's just you can do it on any app that you use to read books. Okay, it's absolutely free. It's 19 hours, I will tell you. That's how long you'll listen. So, if you commute to and from work or whatever it is, you have time to actually pop that in, pop that up, bring it up on your phone, and start listening to it. It will shock you. It will absolutely shock you the way anybody is shocked when they hadn't read it and listened to Bob Mueller say what was in it. All right, so that's one thing that you can do. The other thing I'm telling you is we are the problem. The American public does not understand what's in that Mueller report. And so it's not that Nancy Pelosi is waiting for public opinion to grow in order to start hearings. It's the exact opposite. She is trying to get documents. She is trying to get testimony. She is trying to get an unredacted version of the Mueller report. She's trying to get witnesses. She's trying to get people slotted in to give testimony, right? So that the American people can then watch. Because how many times have I said to you, if it's not on the TV, it didn't happen? And I say this as a radio person, knowing that I spit out a spleen every freaking day trying to explain the lay of the land, the law of the land, all these things. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I do. If it's not on the TV, it didn't happen. Period. So here's the news. The House Judiciary Committee will begin hearings on Monday, not today, June 10th, Monday, a week from today. I believe the opening witness, unless something changes between now and then, which it very well could, will be the Nixon White House counsel, John Dean, not the Trump White House counsel, Don McGahn, who is very busy defying a subpoena. So is Bill Barr. Bill Barr is in contempt of Congress. And we know that the White House is also in contempt of court now. And didn't I tell you that the last straw for deciding whether or not we were in a constitutional crisis would be if a court ordered the Trump administration to do a thing and they did not do that thing? That would mean he was defying Congress and the other co-equal branch of government, the judiciary, and that would be a full-blown constitutional crisis. Well, we're here. That has happened. It happened on Friday. Two horrible things happened on Friday. One, there was this mass shooting in Virginia, what was it, Virginia Beach? Okay, and today is Monday, and everybody's pretty much forgotten about it. That's how sick this is. This particular man, he was 40 years old. No one has a motive for him. But we do know that he did not use a silencer. He used a suppressor to muffle the sound of where the gunfire was coming from. So while the police were literally 150 yards away, this man managed to kill 12 people. And there are still, I think, 4 in the hospital, 3 in critical condition. So that number could go up, right? All right. And of course, Mick Mulvaney had to go on TV and tell us too soon to talk about background checks, or too soon to talk about, whether or not we should ban suppressors, silencers, large magazines, whatever. It's always too soon. It's always too soon for them. Well, it isn't too soon for us. So we passed H.R. 8. This is what gets lost in all this flotsam and jetsam, okay? The House passed H.R. 8. H.R. 8 has a number of things in it that would help cut down access to various things that increase the casualty rate in these shootings, okay? And of course, the crazy part is that the House can do both things. The House can pass gun legislation. The Senate can ignore it, as they normally do. And if you're in Kentucky and you wonder why your state is so freaking poor, and why it looks that way, and why your main senator, your representatives, your senators, your House members, why they don't advocate for Kentucky, but instead advocate for this president to continue to trounce upon our Constitution, why they enable him, just look no further than Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, okay? This is your representation. That's why these states are in such terrible, terrible shape, because they have representation like that, and they keep voting for these fools. But we can pass legislation. We have passed gun legislation. And we can also begin the hearings next Monday. So the first hearing will happen next Monday. It's designed to explore legislative oversight and constitutional remedies, to decide how to respond to this constitutional crisis that we're in, right? Because Judge Emmett Sullivan 2 weeks ago ordered that an unredacted Mueller report be published. It hasn't. And also that the Flynn stuff be made public, and they refuse. The White House refuses.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
We believe that if we do it efficiently and effectively, it will be one that the public will understand and will support.
Yep.
If the public ever feels that we're being political with this, we will have done a tremendous harm to the country, to the Constitution, and to the people that we are sworn to serve.
But it sounds like you think that the president will be impeached, or at least proceedings will begin in the House at some point, but just not right now.
Yes, exactly what I feel. I think we've already begun it. We've got all of these committees doing their work. We're having hearings. We've already won 2 court cases, and there are other cases that are still to be determined. So why should we get out in front of this process? Why don't we just continue to go along? And we are winning this issue. Why should we go out and make missteps and cause us to lose a court decision that will have people saying, why didn't you take your time? Why did you get out in front of this? It's kind of interesting to me as I talk to people, when you ask them what they think we ought to do, they agree with what we're doing. Mm-hmm. It's just that emotionally, they would like to see something done and see it done quicker. But people want us to be effective with what we do.
All right, so hearings will begin next Monday. That is a gimme. That's so far a gimme. Okay, that's what just broke. Bloomberg News reported that at about an hour ago. And according to what they're reporting, it will be John Dean will start it off, and then they will have various prosecutors testify. They will have law enforcement officials testify. They will have legal experts testify about the impeachable offenses that that Trump committed. So it's gonna begin. It's gonna begin next Monday. The Trump administration has, as of Friday, defied 2 court orders, both of them ordered by Judge Emmett Sullivan. Emmett Sullivan, if you don't remember, he's the sentencing judge for Michael Flynn. And he is the judge that told Michael Flynn that he had sold out his country, right? And so Emmett Sullivan ordered that the transcripts of Flynn's conversations between Michael Flynn and the Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak be made public. That was in response to a Washington Post case. The Washington Post actually filed a motion seeking a release of redacted and sealed documents in Michael Flynn's case, okay? And Emmett Sullivan ordered that those transcripts and those conversations, those recordings, be made public so we could hear them. He also ordered, and this was 2 weeks ago, he gave them 2 weeks to comply with the order. He also ordered that a unredacted copy of the Mueller report be furnished to his court. And the White House has refused the court orders. You know what they did? They turned around, they told Judge Sullivan. Now remember, this is a guy who has a thing. He's not a prosecutor's friend. He's kind of a guy that always questions prosecutors heavy hand and iron fist and blah, blah. And now he's telling these prosecutors that they have to turn over these documents. And they're not doing it. The White House instead, the prosecutors at the Department of Justice, turned around and had the nerve to tell Judge Sullivan, Emmett Sullivan, that his request to make public the unredacted Mueller report and to provide the transcripts and voice recordings of Michael Flynn talking to Sergei Kislyak, they said they're not relevant. They're not relevant. Well, I got news for you. They made that case already in front of the judge. The judge already heard that argument. He rejected it and ordered that they release. And now they're turning around and telling him, well, we made the argument, and just because you rejected it doesn't mean we have to follow your court order. Wrong. If you disagree with a judge, or a judge orders you to produce something, and you disagree with that order, you have to go to a higher court. You can't lecture the judge that ordered after hearing your arguments and viewing your evidence and rejecting your argument and rejecting your evidence. You can't tell him, we're not going to comply with your court order because we still think X. We still think it's irrelevant. You don't get to do that in America. And so this is a constitutional crisis because Emmett Sullivan 2 weeks ago gave them until last Friday to give him an unredacted version of the Mueller report and to release and make public the transcripts and the voicemails and the voice recordings between Michael Flynn, who he actually said, Judge Sullivan said that Michael Flynn sold out his country. Now, don't you want to know what prompted him to say to Michael Flynn, you sold out your country? And the White House goes, we don't have to listen to you. We don't have to listen to you. The only thing that we have seen is a transcript, one transcript, and that was from Trump's lawyer, Dowd, right? What's his name? Dowd, John Dowd, to Flynn's attorney, Kellner, Michael Kellner. And there was a voicemail left on Kellner's answering machine on behalf of Trump talking to Flynn through the lawyers, right? And so John Dowd, and the only reason why we got this transcript is because it was pretty much in the Mueller report anyway. You could read it in the Mueller report. And what the voicemail said was, this is Trump's attorney, John Dowd. He's calling Flynn's attorney, Kellner, and he says, you know, I understand your situation, but let me see if I can state it in starker terms. If there's information that implicates the president, then we've got a national security issue. So, you know, we need some kind of heads up. Just for the sake of protecting all of our interests, if we can, without you having to give up any confidential information, remember what we've always said about the president and his feelings towards Flynn, and all that still remains. Now, the White House's position is that is not improper to contact Flynn and float a pardon. and say that if he doesn't cooperate, which is what he's saying there, if you're going to tell something to the court that's a national security, you really need to tell us what you're going to tell them. And just remember, if you decide not to tell them what you're going to tell them and you tell us instead, we still love you. We have very warm feelings, right? That is all we got. So they are in defiance of a court order. And so this is now a constitutional crisis. Not that you would ever know it from the news coverage of what happened on Friday. Now, I will say the alternate universe of Fox News on Friday when there was a shooting, and just to prove that we can legislate and prosecute at the same time, we did pass gun legislation. H.R. 8 is an amazing, start. It's not everything. Nothing will ever be everything, but it's something. And, the White House goes out on the Sunday shows and starts to imply to the people of these United States that there is no legislation that the Senate could vote on, that it's too soon to even talk about gun legislation, which is just complete and utter bullcrap.
Does the president believe there's a role for the federal government here to preventing these mass shootings?
Let's start with this. And every time, and I saw the lead-in you did with Mr. Williams, and it seems like you're right. We have too many of these shootings, and every time the first thing we talk about is politics. And the mourning crisis period hasn't even stopped yet, let alone the healing process. So let's.
That's because we have so many of them that the mourning process starts. The healing process can't conclude, and then we have another one in the middle of the mourning process. And isn't he implying to you that there is no legislation available to vote on? I mean, what is this with the lies to the American people?
Let's not get too deep into politics too soon. Let's think about the families.
It's not about politics. This is a policy
question. It is. So let's talk about policy, and the policy is enforcement and what we're already doing. What's been lost in the last couple of years is the fact that this administration banned bump stocks. Mm-hmm. We signed a piece of legislation that fixed the background checks. Now, we don't know if background checks played a role here, but
we got to learn more about the silencer situation. You heard Pete about the silencer situation. That seems like a legitimate concern.
Right, but keep in mind, I'm more familiar with this situation in Charleston several years ago where a guy walks into a church and shot my desk mate in the South Carolina Senate. That was where the background check system let us all down. And we fixed that last year with this administration on a bipartisan basis. So there are things that the government can do, and there's things this government is doing, but we're never going to protect everybody against everybody who is deranged, insane. I don't know what the shooter's motivation was. We talked about that before. So you're never going to make everything perfectly safe.
Nobody thinks we will ever be able to make everything perfectly safe unless you live in a bubble. A hermetically sealed bubble, but we do think that people need to have it made harder to get a freaking military weapon. We should ban high-capacity magazines and assault weapons, and the whole issue of silencers now and suppressors is another one. This guy got all his guns legally. We don't know why he shot up his workplace, but we know he got them legally. Don't you think that's a problem?
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey! It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
The Obama-Biden administration, you're proposing something very bold in your words, perhaps far-reaching, certainly. President Obama, Vice President Biden, they were not able to get even modest gun control measures through Congress when they were in office after Sandy Hook. So my question for you is,
what kind of sick
how are you going to do it? Even if you're elected president, you might not have a veto-proof majority in the House and the Senate. And if you do have that, you might have a lot of Democratic members who come from states where gun rights are very important, such as Montana. How will you be able to get something passed where Obama and Biden were not able to?
Well, this echoes to me of the civil rights movement, where civil rights legislation passed time and time again. The longest filibuster in the Senate was Strom Thurmond's trying to stop civil rights legislation from happening. And people said it couldn't be done, that there were states that were standing firmly against it. But you know what happened is we had leaders that called to the moral imagination of our country, called to the conscience of our nation, built the kind of coalitions necessary to tear down segregation. And so here we have a nation that has untold levels of carnage and violence and shootings every single day, suicides, 90 to 100 people dying every single day. I believe that just because we've failed in the past doesn't mean we will fail in the future. I believe it takes grit and fight and will, and we can muster that in the United States to do common sense things that do not take away people's Second Amendment rights. The only people that should be afraid of the kind of legislation I'm pushing are gun runners, criminals, and the corporate gun lobby.
And the corporate gun lobby. So the NRA, for instance, I cannot believe that we had a mass shooting on Friday. Today is only Monday, and there's there's nothing really on the TV about it except thoughts and prayers. Oh, it's too soon. It's too soon. Cory Booker and the entire Democratic Party have worked. Cory's in the Senate, so they haven't gotten to vote, but the House has, and we passed gun legislation. We passed H.R. 8. What we want has absolutely nothing to do with depriving you or ripping your gun out of your cold dead hand. What we're saying is that you need to have a license. You need a license to drive. You need a passport. You just go through a freaking process. We fingerprint you. You have a little interview. You take a gun safety course. What the hell is so bad? We have so many people in this country with all kinds of mental problems. The president is trying to undo the ACA that actually has mental health care in it to help pay for it. You have, post-traumatic stress syndrome. You have people that are, and we need to get rid of these freaking military-style assault weapons. We need to get rid of the high-capacity magazines. I mean, this is something the Democratic Party has been working on, and the House has passed, and the Senate will not take up. And suddenly, in this alternate universe known as the Republican Party, there is no legislation that would make a difference. You can't have any legislation on guns because if you had legislation on guns, it wouldn't make the world perfect. It wouldn't make the world safe. Cory Booker was the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. Newark, New Jersey, where you got little kids that literally have post-traumatic stress syndrome because of the sound of gunfire. And I know what PTSD is. My dad had it, and I'll tell you the truth. When I was first on my own, I was really freaking poor. Just scraping by, making the decision: do I pay the rent? Do I pay my car payment? They're going to take my car away. I'll park it backwards so that the repo man doesn't come. All that stuff, right? And I lived in an apartment, a studio apartment in Queens, and it had cockroaches. It was infested with cockroaches. Okay. And then, I finally got a job as a clerk typist in an insurance company that happened to be in 3 Park Avenue, which was the exact same building. And I didn't realize it till day one of Air America. It was the exact same building as Air America. That was my very first job in New York. I think I was 17 freaking years old. Okay, 3 Park Avenue, 41st floor. So now I'm in the elevator going to Air America for the very first time. I'm walking up to, and it's a pink, it's literally hideous. It's a pink, giant granite building, okay? And I'm walking into this pink building. I'm going, why is this so freaking familiar? And I put my hand on the button to press the 41st floor, which is where Air America is. And I realize, oh my God, this was my very first job that got me out of the cockroach-infested apartment that I lived in. As a clerk typist, not even as a secretary, just a clerk typist in an insurance company, typing out claim rejections. That's what my job was. When I finally got to a place that didn't have an infestation of cockroaches, I would see things moving out of the corner of the peripheral vision. You would see things moving, right? You would see, and it would, all of a sudden you'd get all, like PTSD. You would think, oh my God, there's a bug. Oh my God, there's a bug. I still have it to this day. That's what PTSD is. And we have people that, need help walking among us, and you never know what their trigger is going to be. And they have access to freaking military-style weapons. And if they become disgruntled at work, or if they become, I don't know, whatever their thing is. This guy that shot up Vegas, we still don't know what the hell that was about. You know why? Because nobody at the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, nobody at Health and Human Services, nobody at the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, is permitted by federal law to study anything that contributes to the carnage in America if it has any connection to a gun. That is bizarre and stupid. It's like saying we don't want to know. It's telling America that we like being ignorant. We don't care. We don't want to know. We don't want to study gun violence. We don't want to study community-based programs that may work. We don't want to study PTSD and how it's the actual help, the therapy is applied, and is it effective? Is it a good application? Is it do we identify enough people? And how could we identify enough people? You had Dylan Roof purchased a gun because the FBI didn't complete his background check. And the law said, oh, well, if we're not done in 10 days, you get your gun. How stupid is that? If it's taking more than 10 days to do a background check, it's because something showed up. And that's what, idiot boy Mulvaney is using as an example. Of fixing things, why is the NRA tax exempt? Why? Why is this lobby, and it's a lobby shop for gun manufacturers. That's all the NRA is, and we know there's all kinds of money issues, and there's fraud, and there's usage of money for personal, aggrandizement and personal luxury, just like the church, just like these mega churches. These guys buy bigger and badder jets and all that, and they claim they don't want to be in a tube full of demons, so they have to have private jets, because you can't put a pastor, you can't put a preacher in a tube full of demons. It will somehow inhibit his ability to preach. I mean, this is a sick thing, right? Why not look at why the NRA is tax exempt? Well, that's what Cory Booker's plan is. Cory Booker's plan, which doesn't have a prayer of being introduced in the Senate because of Mitch McConnell, is to figure out why the NRA is a tax-exempt lobby shop, okay? To figure out what community-based programs actually work when it comes to gun violence. Because he was mayor of Newark, and because kids in his town and where he was a mayor suffer from PTSD to the point where on the 4th of July, when firecrackers go off, those kids want to hide in closets like a scared dog. They have that visceral reaction to gunfire so that they hear firecrackers and they just want to crawl under a bed because there's been so many guns fired in their neighborhood. I mean, this is not a problem that can't be solved. It's just there is no desire on the part of the Republicans to solve it. So they always trot out the same damn thing. We need, I've said this after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, that we need a line of Hallmark cards for post-mass shootings so you can send your very best. Thoughts and prayers. Too soon. Let's not get political. Politics is politics to solve the problems of the people. In this country, it's become a way to funnel money to individuals so that they never solve the problems of the people. And that's why red states look like crap holes. That's why red states are so freaking poor. That's why they have the worst health care.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Are you confident that it was nobody in the White House or a White House advance person that made the request to the Navy to cover up the USS John McCain?
Oh, no, I absolutely believe it was probably somebody in the advance team.
It was on your team. Is there any consequences for this?
I'll answer your question. An advance team is hundreds of people. You know this better than me. You've been overseas as the President of the United States. The fact that some 23 or 24-year-old person on the advance team went to that site and said, oh, my goodness, there's the John McCain. We all know how the President feels about the former senator. Maybe that's not the best backdrop. Can somebody look into moving it? That's not an unreasonable thing to
Seriously?
ask. It's not. And it's
It's not an unreasonable thing about a U.S. Navy, ship that we're worried the President of the United States, it might get set off because a ship that was named for John McCain's grandfather first.
I know. It's a different John McCain. We get that. But you're the third or fourth journalist who's asked me, is someone going to get fired for this? No. If you're not getting along...
No, the President thought it was well-meaning.
And again, the President's feelings towards the former senator are well-known. They're well-known throughout the office. They're well-known in the media. But to think that you're going to get fired over this is silly.
You're a horrible, horrible person, Mick Mulvaney. You are beneath the spit on the belly of a snake. You are a terrible traitor to this nation. You think somebody ought to get fired for moving or attempting to move the USS John McCain so not to offend the president? No, nobody's going to. And it was probably a 23 or 24-year-old. Somehow that, first of all, it was the White House military office calling the U.S. Navy, telling them to minimize the visibility of the USS John McCain. And we know this because there was email back and forth between the White House military office and the people on the ground in Japan. And then Mulvaney, you know, he went to every freaking Sunday show, and then he went to Fox News. And Chris Wallace said, but there are emails. How could you sit here and blame this on some 23, 24-year-old dude? And isn't this disgusting? No.
During the president's trip to, or actually before he went to Japan, the White House military office sent this email to the Navy. And I want to read it. USS John McCain needs to be out of sight. Once the story became public, here was the president's reaction.
Now, somebody did it because they thought I didn't like it, okay? And they were well-meaning, I will say. I didn't know anything about it. I would never have done that.
Two questions, and I got about 30 seconds for you. What does the president mean it was well-meaning? Yeah. And the second, have you, as White House chief of staff, determined how it was that somebody in the military office in the White House decided it would be a good idea to hide the ship that is in honor of an American war hero?
All right, in the 15 seconds you left me out of your 30, the president didn't know about it. I didn't know about it. Look, literally hundreds of people are involved in moving the president overseas. The president's feelings about the former senator are well known. The fact that a low-level person might have asked the question shouldn't surprise anybody. We think it's much ado about nothing.
You're politicizing the military.
Will somebody in the White House be disciplined?
For what? For asking an innocuous question about that? No. Did someone get disciplined at Fox News for saying that so-and-so doesn't want to sit next to so-and-so at a meeting? No. Again, this is a minor issue that we think the media is trying to make into a larger matter.
Well, let me just say, to pursue it, that the Pentagon chief, Shanahan, had his chief of staff call the White House to say that the Pentagon must not be politicized. So apparently, Patrick Shanahan doesn't think it's a minor idea.
Yeah.
But again, nothing happened because asked a question during the preparation for a trip. Again, if you understood how many people were involved in this, you understand the number of folks who could have asked this question. And if a 23 or 24-year-old person says, look, is it really a good idea for this ship to be in the background? That is not an unreasonable question to have, and it's certainly not something that takes up 2 minutes of national television on Sunday.
Stunned silence, even on the alternate universe, even in the alternate universe of Fox News. I mean, just stunned. The Navy says it was asked to minimize visibility of the USS McCain for the Trump visit. Okay, a request was made. Here's the state. A request was made to the U.S. Navy to minimize the visibility of the USS John S. McCain. However, all ships remained in their normal configuration during the president's visit. Can I just insert this? Do you know why the USS John McCain was in port and unable to be moved as the request requested? The reason why the USS John McCain was unable to be moved is because it was in for repairs after it had a collision at sea and 10 sailors on it died. That's your president. He didn't want those sailors on board that ship to attend his little dog and pony show in Japan because their caps would say USS John McCain. And I bet you there are a lot of sailors on the USS John McCain who are 18 and 19 years old, never mind 23 and 24, which somehow minimizes the idea that Trump had the White House military liaison call the Navy and tell them, I don't want to see that ship, and I don't want the people on board that ship near me because they'll wear the baseball cap with McCain's name on it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know about it. I want it removed from my sight. I mean, that is so sick. Now, was a 23 or 24-year-old who asked a question? That is not the truth. And when confronted with the fact that there are emails from the White House well, it's still a 23 or 24-year-old, and he just asked a question and blah, blah, blah. The politicization, I have to say that really slow. It's like how I speak Spanish. My friends in Costa Rica, when they're teaching me Spanish, they always say, break the words up, break them up. So politicization of the military is unconscionable. It is something no American should stand for. It is something America will be super, super sorry for if we don't nip it in the bud. These sailors, the air crew, the WASPs, were wearing patches with Donald Trump's freaking orange face on them saying, make air crew great again. This is more than asking a question. There are emails that clearly say that the king didn't want to see the USS John McCain. The king wanted it removed from his sight of vision. The king didn't want USS McCain caps in front of it. He didn't want to have to read this man's name. And you know why, right? You know why? The reason why is because when the Steele dossier was offered to the United States, it was offered by Chris Steele to John McCain and Lindsey Graham. It was offered to John McCain. And John McCain showed it to Lindsey Graham. And this is why no one knows how Lindsey Graham's being blackmailed or what the deal with him is, why he's such a bootlicker, but something really ugly is going on beneath the surface there. But when John McCain showed it to Lindsey Graham said, you need to tell the FBI. You need to give the Steele dossier to the FBI. And they did, and this was in October. So, obviously, the FBI counterintelligence investigation began in June. And it wasn't until June, July, August, September, October that the Steele dossier ended up in John McCain's possession, that Chris Steele gave it to him. And he turned it over to the FBI. This is why Trump hates him. This is why. Because McCain, although I disagree with him on everything from Iraq to Iran, gave it to the FBI.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. And they call us snowflakes. Don't you love that? They call us snow. He can't bear to see John McCain's name on a baseball cap, but we're the snowflakes, right? We're the ones that just melt and just, turn to water. Oh, please, this man is such a P word. And I hate that word, but he is that. He is so completely bizarre and so easily shattered. He's such a weak man. He's lazy. He's weak. He's stupid. He's everything that he says that, his opponents are. That's what he is. And, it's just really... Oh, and you know what? I meant to say this again. Please do a couple things for us today. On Twitter, if you're on Twitter, and a lot of people are, my Twitter, my personal one is @Randi Rhodes, RandiRhodes, okay? Do two things. Follow me, thank you, and then click on the last tweet and download that Audible book, okay? It is The Mueller Report, being read by beautiful voices, actors, actresses, just people with fabulous voices, very soothing, very comforting. It will take you 19 hours to get through it, but you will then understand what a slimeball, what a weak person who didn't think he could do it on his own, who knew he couldn't win by himself, who didn't have the courage of any convictions, let alone convictions he has. He has no convictions. He turned to a foreign adversary. He expected to benefit. He was embracing them. He was, asking them for help. It's all in there. And then when a counterintelligence investigation was opened to find out why Russia was interfering in our election, and who in Russia, was it the military, was it the intelligence services, was it Putin himself, and the answer was yes, yes, and yes, this president obstructed an investigation to protect and defend the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. This is impeachable. Okay, I don't use the word treason because we're not in a time of war with Russia. So that's not the proper word. But this man sold out his country, which makes him a traitor. He is a traitor to this nation. So please go to at Randi Rhodes, follow me, and then click on that and just know that it's free and you can listen to it and you will understand everything that's about to happen beginning next Monday when some federal prosecutors step up to the plate. Now, I don't know where this Boy Scout, I don't know where this Marine who went to Vietnam and took a bullet, such courage, such bravery, after he graduated from Princeton, Bob Mueller. I don't know what he's so freaking afraid of, but they're in negotiations. Maybe he'll testify, maybe he won't. Meanwhile, here's another piece of breaking news today. A key witness in Mueller's investigation. You've probably heard me talk about this guy. His name's George Nader, another pedophile, okay? I mean, this is where Pizzagate was dreamt up. You talk about projection. I mean, Donald Trump bragged about inspecting 15-year-olds at the Miss Teen USA pageant and how he could take liberties with them and inspect them when they were naked in the dress. And you got Jeffrey Epstein, his best freaking friend, and Alan Dershowitz, who's somehow involved in this Jeffrey Epstein case, which was massive, massive human trafficking of poor girls here in Florida who lived in trailer parks or came from broken families or, were just not supported well enough in their lives not to end up hanging out with slime balls like Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump and Dershowitz, right? So they're all friends. And now you got this other guy, George Nader. Now, George Nader is a Lebanese businessman who was charged 28 years ago with being a pedophile, right? And the United States intelligence services and other influential figures within the Republican Party actually argued privately to a court to let him go because he was so involved in our national security affairs. And now we find out that on January of 2018, George Nader was again served with a subpoena and cooperated with authorities. And that is why he provided grand jury testimony about his interaction with Trump supporters. And now that the thing is over, he's going to have to stand trial on bringing more child pornography into the United States. Now, he was the guy who arranged, George Nader, if it rings a bell, it's because Nader is the guy that arranged for Eric Prince to go to the Seychelles Islands to meet with the Russians. That's who George Nader is. He was the liaison between Eric Prince, who was not officially part of the campaign, but who now has a contract with the United Arab Emirates to provide some sort of mercenary corps, right? And so that meeting in the Seychelles was with the Middle East leaders of the UAE and Russians who were interested in making contact with the administration in early 2017. And Nader is the person that actually arranged this meeting. Now, Eric Prince lied to Congress. He told Congress, oh, it was just happenstance. He happened to be at this fabulous location in the Indian Ocean on the Seychelles Islands, and he was having a beer at the bar of like this, fabulous, I think it was a Four Seasons or I don't know. And that the Russian official just happened to be there. They had a beer and that was it. Well, George Nader, now we know why he was testifying. George Nader testified, no, I arranged that meeting. Eric Prince knew damn well, what he was going to do when he got there and who was going to be there. And it was prearranged, just like the Trump Tower meeting was prearranged. And, so now he's been indicted by the federal officials on child pornography charges, according to court documents. And he has a previous record on the same kinds of charges. He was charged in Virginia. He's going to make his initial court appearance in New York. Now, over the weekend, it's in the homework. There's a lot of good stuff in the homework today. The first link in the homework is also the Audible link to the Mueller report, read by actors and actresses in beautiful voices, so you can listen to it. That's the first link in the homework. And if you go through the links in the homework, you will see a very long read, I think it was the New York Times story, about how the UAE and Russia are rearranging all of our political alliances. All of our allies are changing. We are now siding with dictators and human rights abusers. and people who are there because of a hereditary monarchy, which I think is what Trump loves the most. Which is why he says he's fallen in love with Kim Jong-un, who apparently executed 4 of the nuclear negotiators for failure to, get Trump off of their back. And now they're aligned with Vladimir Putin. And apparently Putin said, get rid of these guys. They know too much. Now a picture of this Hyuk Chol guy, right? Kim Hyuk Chol, the guy who was supposedly executed, suddenly appears in what everybody thinks is a photoshopped picture, with his hands over his face, like somebody's about to shoot him. I don't know. This is so messed up, and this man has got to be held accountable. This president of ours is so unworthy of the office he holds. He's so unworthy of being anybody who's admired, anybody who's given any honor, any trust at all by anybody ever. Oh, and then idiot boy Jared sits down with Axios, and he can't, he says, oh, birtherism? No, that's not racist. There's not a racist bone in his body.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Excuse me, if you're not going to start an impeachment inquiry into Donald Trump, describe the president for whom you would start an impeachment inquiry, right? I mean, a president who abused power, a president who used the instruments of the state to go after his political enemies, a president who lied to the American people all the time. I mean, just describe this hypothetical president who does something that Donald Trump doesn't do all the time.
That's, like I said, impeachment inquiries were built for this man. They were designed for this man, because this man literally has zero love for this country, zero respect for the Constitution, an understanding of what it is and how it works. He is an autocrat. He thinks he's starting some hereditary monarchy here, and that is not our country. It has no relationship to our country, what he wants America to do and look like and be. None whatsoever. And now you got these religious losers. I mean, it's amazing to me. You got Jerry Falwell Jr., or what's his name? No, Franklin Graham Jr., who is out there, telling everybody they need to pray for this president. This is a man who also is in some scandal with a pool boy. Him and his wife paid a pool boy like $2 million to destroy photographs of him and his wife. Why is everyone around this president the slimiest of the slimy, the most hypocritical of the hypocrites, the most disgusting of the disgusting? Why? Why are they all without any morality, any conscience, any care, It's unbelievable. So you got George Nader over here with his child pornography crap. You've got the Franklin Grahams of the world. You got Eric Prince and Roger Stone, and I mean these are all just like really twisted. I can't even imagine if Obama was friends with any of them, like what the press would have done. They attacked that man because he wore tan pants and had a beer summit. A beer summit to try and have a conversation about racism in the police. Oh my God. Set the world on fire. It's so sick. It's so wrong. And it's so preventable. But like I said, good news. Next Monday, we should start seeing hearings. Sam in Washington State.
Hey, Randi, I just wanted to point out that this whole thing with the ship controversy and the Trumpers' response to it, it totally proves the point that Michael Cohen made about Trump doesn't tell you what to do. He speaks in code.
Exactly.
And so it doesn't matter whether he specifically told them. Somebody along the line, or many people along the line, assumed that's what Trump was telling them to do.
Right. Exactly. And it wasn't some 23 or 24-year-old who asked a question. It was a directive from the White House military office to the Navy in Japan that said minimize the visibility of the McCain because our snowflake president will be offended by it.
Exactly. And whether or not the snowflake president said, I would be offended. These people are so, hypnotized or whatever the word is that they look at everything in that sort of response. Is this the code he's telling me?
Right. And that's why Jared Kushner got boxed into a corner by Axios. I wish I could play it, but that Axios show is on HBO, and HBO won't let me play any of their stuff, so I can't play it. I would love to be able to play the Axios stuff. I would love to be able to play Bill Maher for you, but I can't. But anyway, so there was Jared being asked questions by a reporter for Axios, and they asked him, is Trump a racist? Is Trump, easily upset? He said, no, there's not a racist. He go, well, birtherism. He go, well, I wasn't around when he was doing that. What, are you kidding me? He started his campaign by coming down an escalator, saying Mexicans were rapists. You don't remember him being racist? You don't remember Charlottesville? You don't remember birtherism? You don't remember anything? And the reason why they can't say anything is because if they do, Trump's wrath, right? Trump will yell at him. Trump will take away his security clearance. Trump will retaliate against anybody who doesn't hear his, desires, hopes, and dreams.
Exactly. That they're so cowed by him that nobody's willing to say, hey, Emperor, you're wearing no clothes.
Exactly. And that does prove what Michael Cohen said. And that's what I was getting at, on Friday when I was talking about the politicization of the military, is that this is exactly what the military hears from their commander-in-chief. They hear a man who wants the military to wear Make America Great Again caps, and so they do. They see a military, they hear from him that he wants a patch with his face on their sleeve, so they sew one on.
Well, hey, acting defense secretary, the guy from Boeing, who is trying to deny that anything's going on and he's not going to investigate it, he's acting. He wants the full-time job. Is he going to stand up and say this is wrong? Of course not.
Right. Well, he says he's got concerns and that he doesn't want to see the military politicized. Now, when you have a Boeing executive, saying that, maybe everybody ought to wake up. Maybe everybody ought to sit up straight and say, here's a guy who can funnel contract, and he's risking a little bit of something here by saying the military shouldn't go down this road. This would be bad.
Right. But that's as far as he's going to go.
No, definitely. No question.
Well, thanks for all you do, Randy. Love you.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate you, too. Thanks for calling.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. So the other thing is, so you can go to my Twitter, at Randi Rhodes, and follow me, and then click on the Audible. I think it's very important that you start listening to this report. And then the other thing is, it's it's the 3rd of the month, but we need your monthly support, and we only harangue you because we are completely supported by you. To do your very best at the beginning of the month so we could pay all kinds of bills that we have to pay. I just paid the rent. Just paid that. Daryl in Phoenix.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. I understand about the idea about not going directly to impeachment.
Mm-hmm.
But the clip you just played about the RE show with Eugene Robinson, and I agree with what he said on there.
Me too.
So I wonder then what's holding Nancy Pelosi up from demanding these impeachment inquiries?
Nothing. It'll start on Monday. Well, they've already been. Here's the thing. They're trying to get witnesses together. Now Mueller, they're in negotiation. Mueller needs to do his damn duty. Okay, and his duty is to show up and give us a televised version of his report. He thinks everybody's just going to read his damn report. Well, I got news for him. This entire country is either so busy keeping the freaking roof over our heads and paying the bills, working 2 jobs, sometimes 3, that we don't have time to read his report. That's why I want the Audible thing. I want you to have it. It's free, right? Well, that's number one.
Well,
and number two, if it isn't on the TV, it didn't happen. Nancy Pelosi is going to be, the Judiciary Committee, Gerald Nadler, is going to start the hearings on Monday. And so far, the witnesses I have seen are simply federal prosecutors and John Dean, the White House counsel to Richard Nixon.
Okay, but the thing is, the people that Trump are telling not to show up, why isn't Nadler and I forget the guy that heads up the Congress Judiciary Committee right now.
It's Nadler.
The black guy. No, the older black guy.
Oh, Clyburn? No,
no, not Clyburn.
Who?
Dang it. Oh, anyway, why aren't they financially penalizing these people for every day they refuse to answer those subpoenas?
Well, that has never been tried.
Why don't they? Why? What's preventing?
Well, so that you don't know. I mean, you could go to court, and they have gone to court, and it takes time for the court to decide. You know, it's not just that you go to court and you demand to be heard, and they go, "Okay, let's hear you," and then we'll make a decision.
So they can't penalize them.
Not without the court. It's never been done.
So all this talk about penalizing them and possibly putting them in jail for not honoring those subpoenas.
Okay, so there's two different things here.
To go through court?
No, there's two different things here. The sergeant at arms has gone and taken people into custody before. Now, it hasn't happened, I think, since 1934. But we've never fined anybody. That's without precedent. That's just never happened. But the sergeant at arms...
They don't have that right? They don't have that authority?
That's what the court would decide. What is the mystery here?
Okay. It was my understanding that they already had that.
It's never happened. There's no precedent for the fine for money damages, but there is for the sergeant at arms
Okay, but they do control the finances of the different departments, right?
They could vote not to finance the government. They could do that too, but then, we get blamed
not
for...
Not the government. I'm talking about particular agencies that are responding to Trump about not showing up.
So that's that. Okay, why now? We'll talk about that tomorrow, okay? All right? Not enough time here. Okay, thank you, everybody.
The Randi